They had their Bibles and they had pencils and papers, and they after about 45 minutes of teaching these pastors, I was not getting any signals that I would normally get from my home church. After about 45 minutes of teaching, people be sitting there kind of looking around. There'd be other people doing this to their watches, and then there were people sitting there agreeing with me, kind of going. I didn't get any signals like that. These guys were right with me, and I started to wrap it up, and the host pastor said, please don't stop. This is really good. Just keep going. And that morning went almost 4 hours. And during a break, the pastors were coming to me and said, we have never heard the Bible taught the way you're teaching it. Well, what was I doing that they had never heard? Well, I was doing what I did every Sunday in my church back in America, where I was working through a book, going chapter by chapter, verse by verse. And these pastors said, we've never heard that kind of teaching where you do that. And I could tell they were really hungry for that. And as we went through the book of Ephesians that week, they just ate it up. It was a powerful time. Well, I get back to America, and I remember, 45 minutes, I'm getting the signals from my people in my church again, and I wanted to take my Bible and just whack them over the head with it. Because I knew they didn't appreciate what they were getting every week, getting fed from the Word of God. So important. Well, I was getting letters from some of these pastors, and they kept asking me to come back the next year for another conference. So in 1984, I went back to this conference, and again, the same thing. These pastors were just right with me, and we were just having a great time. And right in the middle of a session, as I was teaching these pastors, the Lord flashed a picture in my mind that was going to change the whole direction of the ministry that He called me to. And in this picture, what I saw was all these pastors sitting on one side of the room, and on the other side of the room was one couple, and they were from my church. I recognized them. And I'd had a bad experience with them a short while before I came on this trip. And they came to me and they said, Pastor, we're going to be leaving the church. We're just not getting fed here. As I saw this picture, just in an instant, just in a second, I saw these this couple from my church, and as I saw them in this picture, they looked like they were bloated, like somebody taking a pump and pumped them up, like, And on the other side of the room were all these pastors, and they were like skin and bones. And the Lord spoke to me. He said, that's my church. He said, my church in America, it's bloated because it has so many resources available to it. But my third world countries are starving for my word. And that was the beginning of the Lord implanting in my heart a vision to leave my ministry in my church, which was not a popular decision, and move to the Philippines, to Dumaguete City. And that's where we began a training program, because I knew these pastors didn't know how to study their Bible. And one of the things I found out is why they had their pencil and paper out, is they were copying my sermons. So you kind of hope they were good sermons, But, and so I realized these guys didn't know how to really study the Word. And all they were doing was topical, jumping all over the place. Okay, I don't really need this. Okay, I'm good with that. Lecture recording. And anyway, in 1985 of January, I moved my family to Dumaguete City, and I was 40 years of age. So that was 40 years ago. So you can do the math. And God has been so faithful. I had no idea what God was going to do. And as we began to do seminars, began to train pastors, we used the inductive Bible study system. And we developed it and kept working with it until we found that it worked so well for pastors all over the Philippines as we traveled around doing seminars in the different dialects. And it worked everywhere. And little did I know, 40 years later, I have taught this class in now 58 countries around the world. And God has just taken this and expanded it, and it's just been amazing. Jing was one of my, joined us in about 1990.
1990.
Yeah. And he was very young, and
Single.
yeah,
Single.
single man. And he became part of our team there. We eventually had 3 Calvary Chapel pastors, including myself, Trim Kimball, and then Jim Davis. They all came and joined our ministry there, and we worked together for a number of years before Jim eventually started another ministry here in the Philippines. And Pastor Tripp, of course, ran the orphanage that was started in Dumaguete City there. But that's how that all started so many years ago. And I'm just thrilled to be back here, 40 years later. I just turned 80 not too long ago. And God has given me a healthy body, and I'm asking the Lord for another 10 years of travel, But anyway, we'll see what happens. But I'm